So during the CNN interview last night with Donald Trump, another thing caught my attention. A commercial. There was a commercial supporting the Iranian nuclear deal. This has turned into a full-fledged campaign. You can look at polls across the country. A lot of people are losing confidence that the president is headed down the right path with the Iranians, the P5+1 deal. It seems like the Republicans are gaining strength in the public and also votes to knock this thing down. A gentleman who we've visited with quite a bit on this, Steve Clemons, who is the Washington editor-at-large for The Atlantic. Steve, good to have you with us.
Good morning, Ed.
These commercials, this has evolved into a full-fledged campaign trying to get people to get involved, to call the representatives and senators especially, to say yes to this thing. Did you anticipate it was going to end up with this chapter?
No, no way. Right now there's just so many odds, twists and turns, both, in the presidential race and also the tactics on how to approach this deal. Well,
this is Trump last night, or recently, should I say, talking about what a bad deal this is. It's almost like he's a walking, talking commercial against it. Here it is.
People, we make this horrible deal for, one of the worst. I think it'll go down as one of the worst deals ever made by a country with another country. And it's going to lead to, whether it's nuclear destruction, you could name lots of bad scenarios, but the deal with Iran is a totally incompetently negotiated transaction.
What about that, Steve?
Well, it's a really interesting thing. Donald Trump is such a complex man because on one hand, he's saying it's a horrible, badly negotiated deal, negotiated by dunces and dummies. He calls John Kerry a dummy and incompetent. At the same time, he did this surprising thing, which I defended him on, yesterday on XM Sirius, where, he said if he came into office, he wouldn't rip up the deals. You don't rip up deals, he said, and he would police the hell out of it. And so to some degree, there's an element of responsibility beneath all that bluster on the deal, which I think also needs to be part of the equation. So, when you look at it, Donald is changing the way gravity works around presidential candidates right now, because normally, under normal conditions, you would break through the bluster and say, what is your better alternative? The only two clear other options are either acquiescing to Iran with a nuclear bomb and a nuclear capacity, or taking military action to try to keep Iran from acquiring the final system of a final bomb that it had, and taking that military action will eventually lead to Iran hardening and defending its research facility, ending up with a bomb and being pissed off at the rest of the world. So you'd normally get that kind of back and forth with a candidate, and we're not getting that with Donald. He's just a lot of bluster. He understands that there's a lot of conservative backlash against this Iran deal, but when he was asked, would you rip up the deal, he said no.
Yeah.
So that's a really interesting thing.
Well, it is interesting because it plays into a lot of trade agreements that we have that hurt American jobs, and that's a different subject.
Yeah.
All right, there are some Democrats out there. One of them, most noticeably, Senator Bob Menendez.
Yeah.
He became the second Democratic senator to oppose the deal. And Republicans only need 4 more Democrats to reach a filibuster-proof majority of 60 and deliver a bipartisan pushback on the president. No question they got the votes in the House. How big is Menendez, and what's his thinking on this from your perspective?
Menendez is less significant than one would think because he's damaged goods. He's under ethics investigation and potential indictment for corruption charges. He has a legal defense fund that on one day scored about $150,000 of donations from AIPAC supporters. He's got people like Chaim Saban and Sheldon Adelson who are, very much against the Iran deal. Adelson much more than Saban, but nonetheless, both of them opposed that are big donors to Bob Menendez. And so it's not surprising. And when he was, the Democratic leader on
Foreign Relations.
The Senate Foreign Relations Committee, he acted like a neocon. I mean, he was constantly joining up with the Republicans on bashing the White House on how it was handling Syria, bashing the White House on any number of other fronts where it really was a neoconservative line that he was taking. So his posture is not surprising at all to anyone in this business. His impact is limited because he's damaged goods. And the way in which he went and articulated what he would do if he were to redo this deal is so in the weeds and so kind of weird that it's had almost no impact on the debate.
What about Schumer?
Schumer's a big deal. Chuck Schumer is not damaged goods. Chuck Schumer is they say in the way to read power, Ed, is kind of like the stock market. It's not what your stock is today, it's what people think it will be in 10 years, what it will be in 5 years. And Schumer's star has been on the rise. The purported successor to Harry Reid, leading the Democrats in the U.S. Senate. He has long defined himself as a friend and ally of Israel, and so he's created space for people to go against the Iran deal and to take on Obama if they want.
Steve, we all know how this thing works in Washington. There's a lot of horse trading going on. Yeah. There are, some senators who know what Schumer's position is going to be, may call in a few markers and favors on down the road if they stand with Schumer to oppose this deal. Well, I mean, that's the scary thing of it all, is there's some serious politics being played here instead of principle about what we're going to do about the nuclear capability of the Iranians.
I think that's right. I think that there are a couple of things going on where it shifted, because I think that progressives and groups like Move On and the various groups out there that have really punished Schumer relentlessly for what he's done was a shock to them. And Schumer has been sending signals to people that he's not going to twist arms like he said he was going to do against the deal. So he's backed off. That's a good thing. And there are people like Joe Manchin, Senator Manchin, and others I've spoken to who've come out and reassured Schumer that they still support him in the leadership challenge that he'll have next year.
It's going to come down to a swing vote, isn't it? It's going to come down to one vote.
It's going to come down pretty close, yeah.
Yeah. Steve Clemons, always great to visit. I appreciate your time. Thanks so much. We'll do it again. I appreciate it. Thank you. Steve Clemons, Washington editor-at-large for The Atlantic. This is the Ed Schultz News and Commentary Internet production at WeGotIt.com, RawStory.com, RingOfFireRadio.com, brought to you by Communication Workers of America, Alliance for American Manufacturing, BioGreen Clean, and the iSave team. We're back tomorrow.